Well, hi, I'm Jeff Strong. I'm creator of the Auditory Brain Stimulation Therapy Rhythmic Entrainment Intervention. And in this video, I want to talk about our REI Custom Sensory Processing Program. This program is focused on sensory processing, whether you are hypersensitive or hyposensitive. And this is a little different than a regular program, so I thought I would kind of lay out how I approach sensory processing and compare this program to our general all-inclusive REI custom program. So rhythmic entrainment intervention, known as REI, is a therapy that is based upon ancient drumming techniques. What I'm doing is I'm using musical rhythm to influence the brain and behavior. And I've been doing this for about 25 years in a clinical setting. I started my research before that in 1982, really looking at traditions, trying to understand how rhythm was used therapeutically around the world. And then in about 1991, I started looking at it from a perspective of what happens if I remove the cultural influences from these traditional techniques? Does it still have an impact? What's going on with the brain in response to the musical rhythm? So in 92, I started my clinical research, really was looking at a couple key components of how drumming was used and how it could be used to influence brain behavior based upon my own experience. I have ADHD, and so when I was first studying the traditions, I was also struggling with my own issues around being able to function, academically, for instance, in college. And this is where I discovered these techniques. So I was experimenting a little bit with calm and focus at the time when I was first learning the core technique that is really the basis for rhythmic entrainment intervention. And so everything that I've done really through the 80s and then as I started my clinical work was filtered through my own lens of my inability to focus, my hyperactivity, my anxiety, and as well my sensory processing issues. Everybody I've ever met who has ADHD also has sensory processing issues. We're either overwhelmed by sensory input or we're under-responsive to certain cues in our environment. So for me, it was a matter of just looking at this, being able to work with myself before I worked with other people to understand kind of how I felt things impacted me, and then experiment with other people on that and see what happens. Two things I started with really were the calm and the focus. Focus is really about creating novelty. People, especially with ADHD, if we get something that's repetitive or mundane, our brains will shut down. And the only way to keep an ADDer's brain active is to give them something unique, something novel, something unpredictable, so that the brain keys in and says, what is this? Once we figured out the pattern, we kind of shut down, and that's just the way it is. For regular people, there's still a tendency to this a little bit, but it's really much more subtle, and it doesn't impact daily life. And that's kind of the distinguishing line between, when does somebody actually have ADHD, as opposed to when does somebody have just a little distractibility or difficulty focusing sometimes. It's all on a continuum anyway. But the core component that works of novelty to help with getting the brain active works for anybody regardless of whether or not you cross that line into actual ADHD or if you're just a normal person. So creating the novelty is simple, and I've talked about this a lot in my videos. I talk about playing unpredictable patterns that are rhythms that can't really be deciphered in real time. So it's just going on in the background and your brain's trying to figure out what it is, and that has an activating effect, and that can help with focus. So that's one aspect of what I do with everything related to REI. The other aspect of what I do has to do with calm. And I've talked about calm in a bunch of my videos as well. Calm is simply bringing the brain into a calm neurological state. And this would be the lower end of the alpha state of consciousness. Easiest way to do this is through a process called entrainment. This is such an important component, actually. It became part of the name, Rhythmic Entrainment Intervention, because it really is a key component to doing what I do. And that is getting the brain to synchronize to the drumming rhythms and enter this relaxed neurological state. The state is called a relaxed alert state. It's the lower end of the alpha state of consciousness. Like I said, alpha is an outwardly directed state where we're calm, where we're receptive. This is where sensory processing is enhanced because we are in a place that we're calm enough to be able to take in the sensory input and be able to discern what it is without the activity that goes on with a higher level of brain function. It just is an easier way for us to process, especially those of us who have sensory issues and easily get overwhelmed. bringing us into this relaxed state helps us then be able to take in that input and kind of understand what to do with it. So calm basically is this concept of entrainment. Entrainment is where the brainwave patterns match the tempo of the drumming. So I'll play at 8 beats per second, for instance, and that's this tempo here. This will get the brain to synchronize to that tempo, bring you into this relaxed neurological state where you're then more receptive and more responsive to your environment. So that's called neurological calm. That's calm in the way I approach everything that we do with rhythmic entrainment intervention. As a matter of fact, our regular custom program, like I said, is a 6-month program where we're working with a broad base of categories. So we have like 10 symptom areas, we call them, that we work with. They cover everything from calm to focus to sleep to mood to sensory issues, self-stimulatory behaviors, language, communication, socialization. And what we're doing with the custom program over that period of 6 months is we're kind of looking at the broad base of the issues that a person that we're working with is struggling with. And we work to progressively build to a point where we're peeling away the issues and getting to the root of what's going on. It takes about 6 months for a lot of people to really get the kind of gains we want to get. But if we pare it down and we just look at one area or another, we can shorten this time span. So for instance, we also have a custom program, the REI Custom Calm program, which is 4 weeks long. So it's 1/6 the length of time that we go through our regular custom program, but it's focused solely on anxiety, to reduce anxiety and help you be able to process sensory input in a way that you're not anxious. And that's a great program. Like I said, it's 4 weeks long. The sensory processing program is 6 weeks long. We need to go a little bit longer than with anxiety because there's a little bit more to do. And we focus on 2 different aspects of sensory processing. Anybody who's got sensory processing issues is going to fall in one of 2 camps. They're either going to be hypersensitive to the input, meaning that they're either going to get anxious or overwhelmed, or they're going to shut down and retreat from it. Or they're going to be hyposensitive, where they're under-responsive, where they can't discern the subtleties of a sensory input that comes in. Maybe they touch something and they can't really feel the texture. Or they hear something and they can't really understand what's being said. They're just having problems processing to the point of real clear understanding. So everybody is on one of these 2 camps that has sensory issues. And sometimes we're in both these camps. We might have hypersensitivity in one area and hyposensitivity in another area. The whole point of the REI Custom Sensory Processing program is to look specifically at these areas of sensory responses and try to address those. So if somebody's hypersensitive, we're going to start with calm. We're going to build up the calming aspect so that they can then become more receptive. But we're also going to be looking at the intricacies of that particular area that they're hypersensitive to. It could be auditory, loud noises or unexpected sounds, or just a lot of noise, like a restaurant. It doesn't have to be super loud, but it just has to be a lot to try and filter and to discriminate from. Or it could be tactile, where certain textures are uncomfortable, certain clothes, too tight fitting, loose fitting, whatever. We could be uncomfortable with that. It could be in proprioception. It could be in a vestibular. So we're really looking at 4 sensory areas: auditory, tactile, proprioception, and vestibular responses. You can have some areas of hypersensitivity, and you can have other areas of hyposensitivity. And then how do you balance that? And that's what we do with our custom program. So the REI sensory program is, like I said, 6 weeks long. You get a new track every week. We're tracking what's going on. For everybody who's got some hypersensitive component, we start with calm, kind of get the brain to learn how to get into this calm state to be able to handle sensory input. And then we build up the ability to be able to handle more and more and more. Somebody's on the hyposensitive side, we help them discern what's going on. We help them be able to key into the input they're receiving so that they can understand it. And if somebody's got both, we're balancing the 2. So part of the way our custom programs work, if you're not familiar, is we start with an intake process. In this case, I think there's about 85 questions you have to answer. And they're rating scale questions. And so it'll say something like, easily overwhelmed by noisy environment. And then you can mark whether it's relative or not on a scale of 1 to 4. And then we take that profile and we create the first recording. and a plan, what we're going to do for the course of the program. But the first recording is based upon that intake solely. Intake, gender, age, and other descriptors that you put in about what else is going on with you. And then the second recording, and each subsequent recording beyond that, is made based upon your real world responses. So we make some assumptions going in with the intake, because you're going to answer the intake, but you're going to answer it through your own filter. And if you're answering it for a child, you're going to answer it based upon your observations. And it may not be 100% accurate, because we oftentimes aren't in being able to observe things. But we use that as a basis for the first recording. It sets the foundation. And like I said, for hypersensitive people, it's going to really start with calm. For hyposensitive people, there's going to be a calm component, but really what we're trying to do is help activate the brain. So it's going to be more on the focusing end of things. And then we're going to see what happens. How do you respond to this? Was this enough stimulus to make a difference? Was it not enough? Was it going in the wrong direction? Were we seeing something in a different area, or not seeing something in the area we want to see? So the next recording, the second week, we take that data into account. We make the next recording. Also reaching back to that intake form, using that as a basis for kind of understanding the path we're on, but using your real world responses as the basis for really making that choice. The third recording is based upon your responses up until this point. Not only your response from the second recording, but the first recording as well, and the intake. So we're always building it up and adjusting as we need to. Say we're in the third recording and we're seeing some improvement in one area, but there's another area that you're more concerned with, that you're not seeing improvement in. We may make an adjustment to that recording, just what we call revise it. So we'll take recording 3 and we'll make some tweaks to it and say, let's go this way with it a little bit. And then we'll get to track 4 and we'll adjust from there. And so it's a real interactive process, which is true with all of our custom programs. This one, like I said, is 6 weeks long. We get 6 custom-made recordings, 1 each week. And the goal here is to get to the root of your sensory issues. We're not going to fix everything in 6 weeks. We're going to build a foundation. And then you're going to move forward listening to that final recording. And over a period of a few more weeks, maybe up to 6 or 8 weeks beyond that, using the last recording, we'll see things start solidifying. But those 6 weeks of active engagement and active adjustment are the key to building the foundation that gets us to the point where we want to get with the sensory processing. So this is a great program because, like I said, it's in and out. Our regular custom program is 6 months long. It's a great program if you have issues with mood, you've got issues with socialization, you've got real serious issues with attention or anxiety, and the sensory. That's a good way to go. If sensory is the main thing that you want to work with at this point, this is a great program because it gets you in and out, focuses on what's important. That doesn't mean we're not going to see improvements in anxiety if you have it, because that's part of what we do, especially with people who are hypersensitive. So if you're interested in this program, click below. Get started right away. Like I said, it's 6 weeks long. There's 1 track a week. There's also some other things that I include in this, including BrainShift radio mixes, which are really important because these are recordings that you can use in addition to your custom recording every day. And they include things for sleep or focus or calm or energy or uplift. And they can be really good to kind of enhance and support the work you're doing on the sensory processing. Because the reality is with the custom track, you want to listen to that once a day. And then if you want additional benefit of something to use episodically, say to use for calming after school or to use for focusing during homework, you put on one of the BrainShift radio mixes that are in your account. There's also support that we include in this recording. And as well, we offer unlimited customer support. So you get email or telephone support from us throughout this whole process and beyond. So say you're 6 weeks down the road and you still have some questions, we're still available for you. If you're interested, click the link below to get started. Otherwise, give us a call at 800-659-6644 or email us at contact@stronginstitute.com.